Hey, Harold, when you're harmonizing a melody, do you pretty much want to keep the melody note on the top of whatever
That
like chord you're using?
that's my first thought process, Justin. That's my first thought process. You can, of course, do it the opposite way. Okay, so
You could do it in the middle, I guess, too, if you wanted to, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah. Now you're getting fancy. It's usually the top or the bottom, honestly, but yeah, sure.
okay.
All right, so root position A. Okay, so we're doing chord melodies. We're doing dry bones. We did the question was if we have a root in the melody, which chord inversion would that lead us to have underneath that root? What would it be?
First inversion?
First inversion. Now, if I had the third in the lead, which chord inversion puts the third as the top note? Second inversion. Now, again, we're talking about closed position triads. And then if I had the fifth in the lead, what would need to be my chord type?
Root.
Root. Second inversion puts the third in the top.
Oh, I was thinking bottom. Oh,
See what I'm saying?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so back to dry bones. You know, the melody is a D. It's a D chord, so naturally I chose the first inversion. And then as we went to the F sharp, which is the third of the chord, okay, you use second inversion because that third is on the top. And you could either use the same string group or you could move it over a string group that way across
Gotcha.
the neck. And then them bones. Now it's the fifth of the chord. And which chord type has the fifth of the chord in the lead for closed triads?
Root position?
Root
Root,
position.
yeah.
Right now, and then the back to the same. Hear the word of the. All right, same. Actually, same now. Ooh, I forgot to put a D chord over top of that Lord. Do that, do that right now. I'm editing my book. See, I haven't taught this one yet. You guys are the first to. You guys are the first to see the good stuff here.
The guinea
Mhm.
pigs.
So, anyway, does that all make sense, guys?
Yeah.
So, and for the instructions I had, number one, just familiarize yourself with the chords and the melody, and so a lot of times if I'm figuring out a song that I want to harmonize, first I'll just learn the melody. Okay. Okay, sorry, I played the rhythm wrong there, but anyway, familiarize myself, and then just play then maybe sing it. Them bones, them dry bones, them bones, them dry bones. See how I'm playing the chords? Bones
Right.
and dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Okay, and then
That's where I'm
start working on putting them together, and just look, the first one or two of these you do, it may not come like right off the top of your head.
Okay.
You got to give yourself some patience, and maybe you don't do a whole song. Maybe you just do, I mean, you could do like a folk song like this is pretty easy. You could do something like this, or just the verse of a song, um, and take your time and really figure it all out, and then do another one. And I'm telling you, by the third, fourth, fifth song that you do, it's gonna get easier and easier because you start to see those relationships where the third is on the top, which chord to go for. It starts to become more familiar to you the more of these you do. And I would definitely say get this one under your fingers because it's really straightforward. When you look at that, do you have any questions?
It probably makes it easier to know the melody.
Yes, absolutely. Because then you can let your some of your ear and your musical intuition take over. You've either got to know the melody or be a really good reader.
Yeah.
You know. So and look, and not being a good reader doesn't mean don't read. You know, I mean, you know, even with this example, you know, you see what I've got written here. You know, you guys can decipher that, even if you have to theorize a little bit to get it. You
Sure.
can figure that out, and you know, it's easy enough that I think you can practice doing that. You know. Now, my challenge to you would be to find some simple song, Mary Had a Little Lamb or whatever. Matter of fact, we're going to do Mary Had a Little Lamb next. I think. Lesson 26, employing the use of diatonic passing chords. All right, so I did a melodic analysis. I want you guys to see it. Okay, can you see my screen? Do I need to make it bigger?
No. Mine's okay.
Okay. All right. So I did it for you, but what is the E on a C chord?
Third.
And what is the G? What is the D on a G chord?
Yeah.
What is it?
The fifth.
Right. Okay, good. All right, now, so all of this is chord tones up until you get to, you know, it goes into the F chord. What's the A on the F chord?
Third.
Right. What is the G on the C chord?
Oh, jeez.
Try it again. C, D, E, F.
That's fine.
All right. All right, and
That's
then
it.
it's 5. You know, G is 5 of C. What is G in G? In a G chord?
Root.
Right. What is, okay, and so then it's this measure right here where it says passing tones. Okay? You see that?
Yeah.
And the question is always, well, what do I put on those? Well, you know, one simple thing you could do if you just want to do something simple is just play the chord and just kind of walk that note. See, I didn't change chords. I just changed melody note. Okay, that's a simple way to treat passing tones or non-harmonic tones. Now look at the first non-harmonic tone, the 6, okay? Is 6 a chord tone on a C chord? What is it?
It's scale degree 6. I mean,
Right, it's a non-harmonic tone. That's what a non-harmonic tone is, a chord that doesn't belong to the chord.
okay.
It's not part of the C chord, okay? Now, this particular type is called a neighbor tone. It's when you go up to a non-harmonic tone, and then you come right back down to the same note. You can also have lower neighbors where you go down to, you know, step away and then go back up to the chord tone, okay? And then the other one is called, this number 2 here is called a passing tone because it passes from the C to the E. The D is kind of like the passing tone on the way to the E. So there's neighbor tones, there's upper and lower neighbors, there's passing tones. All these, though, are ways to describe what is going on with these notes that aren't in the chord. And then secondly, well, what do I do with them? Okay. So, so this is the way I describe it in the book. The notes of a melody either belong to a chord or do not belong to a chord. 1, 3, and 5 belong to the chord and are considered chord tones or harmonic tones. In other words, they belong to the harmony. Any other note is a non-harmonic tone, or since it usually connects from one chord tone to another chord tone, they can be called passing tones. Non-harmonic tones that connect chord tones, like the D connected the E. Okay? In the melodic analysis above, they have parentheses around them. Which notes in the preceding song are non-harmonic tones? Well, we've been talking about them, the A and the D, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As we saw in Dry Bones, harmonizing the melody when all the notes belong to the chord is fairly easy. But what do you harmonize non-harmonic tones with? Well, let's look at that. Okay, so passing chords is what we're going to talk about. And basically, the name of the game with a passing chord is you need a chord. You know, these are diatonic passing chords. So you guys know what diatonic chords are, right?
No.
Chords that belong to the key. So like, it's the first 6 chapters of the book. Those are diatonic chords. So what happens is when you want to harmonize a non-harmonic tone, or passing tone or neighbor tone or whatever, they're all non-harmonic tones, then you choose another diatonic chord that has that note in it. Okay, and depending on what chord you choose, depends on how that passage is going to sound. So here I've harmonized rather, those 2 bars, the ones with the passing tones in them. I did it 2 ways. The first way, I used a passing chord of a D minor. Now, how does a D minor function in the key of C? Is it a 1 chord? Is it a 2 chord? Is it a 3 chord? What is it?
It's a 2 chord.
The 2 chord, right? Now, why did I choose the D minor? Okay, well, let's just look at that. All right, first of all, it was the non-harmonic tone, so that's the place I can use a passing chord or a diatonic chord that's not the chord that I'm on, because this measure basically is C major, right? You just got this one note that's not part of the C chord. So right. I'm using the D minor. Now, how does the A function? The A is the melody note. How does that function on the D minor chord? How does an A function on the D minor chord?
3.
The,
Sorry, the 5.
Right.
It's the 5th.
The 5th. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. So let me play it for you and alleviate the suspense here. Okay. Okay, so check that out. Okay. I probably would play it there just because I like that sound. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Does that make sense,
Dude.
what I did there?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to do the same measure, But instead of using a D minor chord to harmonize the A, I'm going to use an F chord. How does an A function on an F chord?
It's the second.
No, it's I got to be 1, 3, or 5. Or else not, or else don't use it if it's not going to be a 1, 3, or 5, because that's how I'm choosing, which diatonic chord do I use? I think to myself, well, let me choose one that's got an A in it. Okay. The D minor has
probably
an A
meant
in it.
second note, right? That's probably what you meant, I think.
What's that?
That's what I meant. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. You meant it's like the second note, I guess, up from the F.
Yeah.
Okay, but you got to call it. You got to call it the third degree, right?
True.
Right. I mean, just for clarity's sake, you have
Right.
a root, you have a third, and you have a fifth. We just can't call it 2.
Right.
I mean, in jazz harmonization, it might be a 2, or something. But just for this, So yeah, it's the third of the chord. That's what I'm getting at. Now listen to the same passage, but with that non-harmonic tone as F. You hear the difference? Pretty subtle. Now listen to it this time and listen for the difference. And then we'll play a game, okay? Okay, that's way number 1. Here's way number 2. Okay, did you hear it?
I think I did.
All right, now I'm not going to tell you which way I'm doing. You tell me. Am I doing D minor or am I doing F? Okay, no looking at my fingers.
All right.
All right, which one did I do?
Minor. D minor.
D minor. It's okay. All right, now
That's pretty subtle. It's just like, man, there's just like a one note.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's
The other one sounds higher.
Yeah.
There's like a little bit of a higher tone to that one chord
Well,
than there is
because your bottom note's not going up with the other notes, so the top note is higher away from the bottom note.
So it sticks out a little bit.
It sticks out a little bit. I actually like the F major.
Yeah. I like that.
Okay.
Wow.
So since C is the chord of the moment, or the chord of that measure, the one chord, you pick from, and I give you the, your choices: 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 diminished. A chord that harmonizing the A with each one until you find the one that's most satisfying here. And so,
Wow.
now I even put in here, don't choose A minor, because the other 2 notes belong to C major. So you didn't move any. In other words, A minor is the one choice you could make for that non-harmonic tone in which none of the other notes move. Okay, I want to show you what that sounds like. I mean, no. Nothing else moved. It's not nearly as interesting. All right,
No.
so now you tell me whether I'm harmonizing it with A minor, F major, or D minor. Okay.
Oh.
All right, which way did I do?
Oh boy.
Is it?
I think it was A minor.
I'm gonna say D minor.
No, it was F.
It was F?
Yep. I'll play it slow mo.
Oh man, I thought I had that nailed.
See, if you listen to that bottom note, you can notice that it doesn't move up like D minor would. Okay. All right, now same thing.
Wow.
You guess which way I'm harmonizing it.
I'm sad.
All right, which way was that?
That's the A minor.
Exactly, because nothing's happening there, right? You know, but technically, you know, you don't know that sometimes when you're trying to figure out how you want to do it. You just got to try it out and see which one sounds better. You've got three choices. You know, one had the A as the fifth of the chord, that was the D minor. One had the A as the third of the chord, that was the F major. And one had the A as the root of the chord, that was the A minor. Only one of them sounds the best. And when you're figuring out how to do non-harmonic tones, diatonic passing chords are great. I mean, they work a lot. They don't work all the time. They don't work in chromatic melodies, but they work a lot. I mean, a whole lot. And so this is the way I do it. You know, I just go, okay, what if this diatonic, you know, what if this passing note is a fifth of a chord? Well, you know, what would that be? You know, what if it's the third of a chord? What would that be? And then I just try them out. And then I just go, oh, okay, I like the F better. And that's how I make my choice. Now, a lot of songs have this kind of pattern in it. So after you've done 3 or 4 songs, you kind of know what you like, you know?
Hey, Harold.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever, is it conceivable to make the melody note? Could you make that A note like the 7th of a chord? Could you do that?
Okay, you're into non-diatonic.
Yeah. I was wondering.
Well, okay, because we're in triadic harmony, you get 3 choices.
Gotcha.
Okay, when we get into 7th chords, you'll have 4 choices. Or if we had non-diatonic chords as an option, like mode mixture and stuff, which we'll get into at the end of the book, then yeah, I mean, then you start to get, you know, some really different kinds of answers. But I mean, that gets really crazy and fun. You know, we'll get there. But I thought just for starters, I wanted to get you guys. This is what a non-harmonic tone looks like. This is an easy way to harmonize it. Just use one of the other chords that's in the key. And we've done those. We've done those in all 12 keys now. So you know what they are. And then you just try them out, you know, as the third of the chord, fifth of the chord, root of the chord, and see which one gives you the pleasing underparts. Because that's what passing chords are all about. It's what gives you the harmony. By the way, gentlemen, since you all work with singers, this is a great way to figure out what the harmonization should be when they're singing praise tunes and stuff. This is what you do for passing notes. You figure out which passing chord gives you the better under parts.
Could be a third.
Could be. I mean, or something else. You know, it just depends on the situation. Now I'm going to show you one just off the top of my head. This is Mary Had a Little Lamb. And so what is the passing tone in the first measure? I'm on a C chord. The melody is E, D, C, D, E, E, E. What's the non-harmonic tone?
D.
D is in dog, right?
Right. That's what I said. Yeah, dog.
I figured you did. It just your microphone didn't catch it. So okay, so now that's without a passing chord, just doing the note. Okay, now tell me what is a passing chord I might want to try. It's got to be in the key of C, and it's got to have a D note in the chord. Okay, give me an option.
Boy.
So D, ask yourself this. D is the root of what chord?
D minor.
Okay, all right, let's try D minor. Let's see what that sounds like. Not bad.
I like it. Yeah.
All right, now give me another.
Do it.
Give me another chord that has a D in it that's in the key of C, okay?
B diminished.
Right. It's the third of B diminished. All right. So I'm going to put a B diminished. Watch this. It's really colorful. Now, here's the thing. I like the D minor better. But your alto, she's going to hear one of those two versions.
Right.
And you either like it or you don't like it. If you don't like it, then give her the other note, but, sounds a lot different than, right? D minor. Now the B diminished. You hear how that middle note, ba, da, da, you hear it?
Yep.
Totally different sound, in my opinion.
Yes, it is.
One more chord that I can harmonize that D with. Okay? G. Because it's the what of G? It's the fifth of G. So we're going to try the G out. Gabe over here says we can try the G chord. All right, so here we go. Great. Great. The bottom part's a little more boring, right? In both of the other examples, the bottom part moved to F.
Mm-hmm.
But in this passing chord, the tenor has the most boring part, right? And that may be fine. I really like that sound, actually. To me, it's got it's real block, it's
Right.
It's real straight. It's almost like pop music.
Mm-hmm.
And, the D minor reminds me of gospel or rock, maybe. The B diminished reminds me of gospel. They do that sometimes, man. They put that diminished chord in there. Isn't that fun?
Very interesting. The whole thing is I can't wait till my finger gets better and I can whack into this.
I mean, yeah, and one thing that never occurred to me is that if you're singing something like that, there's different ways to harmonize the melody. I never really thought about that. You could have the freedom to like have your other singers sing different melody notes if you wanted to like harmonize something differently. That was like, wow, it never occurred to me that the passing chord of Mary Had a Little Lamb in C could be B diminished.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's right. And see what I've done in exercise 106, 107, and 108 is I take that same measure and harmonize the passing chords 3 different ways. Because I want you to see the difference. I want you to get a feel for that. I, as an arranger, whether I'm arranging for guitar or for vocals, I think about this stuff very intensely. What I want, what I like. Often I let singers try on their own. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, like once I get people to kind of trust their intuition, mostly they find the right note. They find the note that I like,
Mm-hmm.
And then about 10% of the time they hit a freaking clunker that's just like the worst possible choice. It works technically, but it just doesn't sound good in the whole chord. Like to them,
Right.
it sounds good because it fits their, they're following the contour of the melody often. And so for them, it's like, oh, this feels good to me. But they're not listening to the sound of, they're not sitting back and listen to that whole chord.
Mm-hmm.
And you are, and you can listen to it and say, you know what? Why don't you stay on the D, honey? That's going to sound better.
Yeah.
Because you've got 3 choices in 3-part harmony. That top note, you can treat it as the 5th, you can treat it as a 3rd, you can treat it as a root, and each one's going to give you a different sound on those bottom chords, on those passing chords, So
That helps me understand harmony a lot.
Hopefully this, obviously it'll help you come up with your guitar arrangements a lot more detailed, hopefully. But hopefully also it'll help your understanding of how passing chords work.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now for homework, you guys go you got to decipher exercise 106, 107, and 108.
Okay.
And then 109 is the whole song harmonized, including the measure. And I think I chose my favorite way. Once I've exposed you to, those different ways of harmonizing that note, then I put my favorite way down here in the full arrangement. Okay.
Gotcha.
Does that sound okay, Gabe? Think you
Yeah.
figured out? Jimmy,
Yeah.
you think you can figure that out okay?
I think I can.
Yeah. If you have any
Blowing my.
give me a call.
All right. As usual, it's blowing my mind.
That's the whole idea. if I'm not blowing your mind, then I'm get a different get somebody else.
Yeah, it's fun. Challenge, so.
Yeah. Cool. So this, you could marinate on this. As with a lot of these concepts, you got to kind of monkey around with them a little bit. Do this assignment and then pick your own song. Maybe next week, pick your own song to kind of start to harmonize. So I'm going to stop the recording and take questions.